Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan, and predictably, the woke marketing machine for Rings of Power is beginning to crumble as everything that they've said in the last few years regarding the show is being contradicted by their own very words. And it's some really interesting stuff from several different people. But I want to start here with this article from Bounded in Comments. So, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power showrunner responds to criticism. The show is only vaguely connected to J.R.R. Tolkien's work. Now, throughout the marketing campaign, they're like, "Oh, this is obviously Tolkien. We love Tolkien. We respect the lore." And as the decent actor said, we don't change anything, we just interpret everything, which is in and of itself a lie because her character is a blatant change from the lore because she did not exist. You can't reinterpret a new character into existence, as they've reinterpreted several characters into existence. That's more than half of the main cast is gonna be new and original characters. That is called changing the lore. It's not complicated. And the showrunner has said similar things in the past where this is obviously what Tolkien would have wanted. This is the novel Tolkien never could write. And just some really insane comments like that. But in regards to how it's vaguely connected, I don't want to sort of quibble with the vaguely connected. He then explained why. We don't feel that way. We feel deep roots of the show are in the books of Tolkien, and we don't feel that way. We are terrified to sit up here. You don't have rights to the books. You have rights to the appendices. There's no possible way for you to have deep roots to the books of Tolkien because you don't have rights to the books of Tolkien. You have the appendices, basically bullet points on what is there, and then you're contradicting those bullet points. You barely have any lore, and then you contradict all the lore you actually have. It's asinine. As the author of this article rightfully points out, instead of pointing to the points of Tolkien's work that they are faithfully adapting, that are in the show and stuff like that, McKay continued to just claim that him and Prime are feeling that it's connected to Tolkien. They never can provide examples. That's something we see time and time again with these woke companies. They never provide examples. It's just this ethereal force, as we're getting to with the Morford Clark comments in a moment here. It's just this ethereal force. It's this ethereal connection. There's never concrete evidence. Evidence goes against their narrative, so they pretend it doesn't exist. That's why facts and logic is so damaging to them, because it contradicts these amorphous claims that they always have. We feel that the story isn't ours. It's a story we're stewarding that was here before us and was waiting in those books to be unearthed. I think it means unearthed, but no, it's not the story that was hiding in there to be unearthed because you're making so many goddamn changes to it. How can it? This is the secret story Tolkien always wanted to tell, but was never allowed to tell. What the fuck does that even mean? We don't feel vaguely connected. We feel deeply, deeply connected to the folks in work every day to even be closer connected. You fire Tom Shippey. You don't care about being closely connected. That's really how we feel. And think about it. The rest of these comments are rather pathetic, and they don't really have any explanations, any examples of why they're connected to Tolkien. They're just like, believe us, we're so connected. The rest of the stuff is going to get worse here in a moment here, but I just wanted to highlight them being like, oh, we're vaguely connected. No, we're not vaguely. It's the Tolkien book that he always wanted to write, and we are the ones who were unable to unearth it. A little bit of narcissism, in my opinion. I don't think any modern day writer should compare themselves to be like, we unearthed the secret Tolkien work. Tolkien was just above and beyond the normal everyday scholar, everyday writer. He's beyond the legendary everyday writer and scholar. Like, these people should not be comparing themselves to him and saying, oh, we're unearthing his secret message and his secret intentions and his secret story. It's just asinine to begin with. But that's before we get into this other great stuff. As predicted, the Lord of the Rings executive producer has started to call people racist. Now, we knew this was going to happen. We were surprised that it didn't happen earlier, but this is right before the show comes out. All the classic defense of woke shows is coming out. The classic, ooh, if you don't like it, you're bad. Oh, we can cover up our bad writing. We can cover up our laziness with these amorphous accusations of racism, sexism, and the like to cover up all the sins that they are committing. And it's horrific that Hollywood so often goes to these tactics, but it's not surprising that Rings of Power is following suit. So this executive producer, Weber, told Vanity Fair, it felt only natural to us that an adaptation of Tolkien's work would reflect what the world actually looks like. Now, this is an old article and an old interview that really set the stage for a lot of this Rings of Power stuff. Middle Earth isn't Earth, so why should it look like our Earth today? That doesn't make any sense, and it's a medieval fantasy to begin with. Nothing about Middle Earth should really be reflecting what our world looks like today, so they're just setting the stage. Tolkien is everyone. His stories are about his fictional races doing their best work when they leave the isolation of their own cultures and come together. Yes, and that's not talking about races in the sense that we say it in our society. Races meant elves, dwarves, humans, hobbits, and the like, not black, white, Asian, and the like. Different definitions of the word, trying to bring it all together under one umbrella. And now he's this same producer is starting to have a new interview with the Time magazines where it gets a little bit more clear. We're all up for criticism. We're not up for racism. What does that mean? Okay, just give us examples. Is someone saying something racist, or are you saying stuff is racist when it's really not? When people are saying, hey, there shouldn't be black elves, there shouldn't be black dwarves because it doesn't make sense, because elves were born underneath the stars. There's no way that they could have evolved in that sense. Dwarves live deep beneath the earth. There's no way they could have evolved in that sense. Is that the criticism that you're saying is racist? Because that is actual lore criticism. That's legitimate criticism. I'm sure that's what she's referring to, but she's not going to give any specific examples, as they always don't. They never bring specific examples. Now, this all sounds eerily familiar to Star Wars fans with the Reva situation going on with the Kenobi series a few months back, where it's just, ooh, if you don't like the show, if you don't like this character, you're all racist. Criticism, you're racist. And they provide a few random examples, but as Star Wars learned, people can just condemn those and say, hey, that's not what we're talking about. Condemn those people individually. Don't make these mass statements towards fans that aren't true. So Rings of Power people, they've learned from the mistakes of Star Wars, and they're not providing examples. They're just doing this ethereal racism that's just out there in the world that's causing all this damage. And that's followed up by Morford Clark's comments, where she says some really dumb stuff to the critics. But before we get into those comments, she's had some really dumb comments in the past. She admitted that this is a perversion of Tolkien's work to Time magazine, where she said, I didn't read the books, and I think I wish there were more female characters because I just took it to everything. This is the way things were. It's the Middle Earth. They can have different rules. They can have different ethics. They can have a different society than we do today. That's totally fine. And she said, however, she added, I'm standing on the shoulders of women who spilt metaphorical blood to get to this point. I hope young people should watch this will think this is just the way things are. That's admitting that she's changing something. Before she said, Lord of the Rings, I didn't think, why aren't there more women characters? Because I thought it was just the way it is. Now she's saying, now I hope people watch the show and think this is just the way it is. That's a contradiction in statements there. She's saying we're changing the show to hyper-emphasize female empowerment because the books didn't, which contradicts the whole, this is Tolkien's story, the secret story. It's just a whole lot of contradiction coming from the actors and the showrunners, and it's just all sorts of nonsense. And she admits it's very much against the work of Tolkien because they're changing it. They're changing the balances of power. It's just how the world works. It might be wrong, it might be different, but that's okay. It's telling its own story, and that is just so hard for people like her to understand. And then to pile on to the racism comment of the producer, she went on to have this Instagram post where she said, anyone sending hate to my black castmates, get off my page, get off the internet, and shut up. Can you provide examples? Because we haven't seen any actual racism. We've seen people having rightful criticism for the inclusion of diversity in this world where it doesn't make sense, but we haven't seen any actual racist comments. So what are you referring to? And then she follows it up by saying, just shut the fuck up. That's the best that she has. That's her response to fans. That's how she endears herself to fans. And there's just so much perversion when it comes to Galadriel's character in specific, from the hyper-emphasis on female empowerment, to her being a warrior, to her being naked. Apparently there's going to be some nudity. I've seen some behind-the-scenes photos done by George the Giant Slayer. He does a great video on it. Shout out to him, where you straight up see Galadriel's breasts. I do not want to see Galadriel's breasts. And that's just a perversion of her character. Elves are supposed to be ethereal, beyond the carnal nature and the carnal view of man. It's just supposed to be so beyond that I don't want to see that, and I think it's wrong that we get to see that in the Rings of Power show. And just like it's wrong for that, this trailer that they put out recently is all about her wanting to fuck Halbrand. They give each other fuck me eyes throughout the whole thing. They get really close to each other, and then there's this scene where they're grabbing a phallic-shaped object between each other. I don't want to see Galadriel flirting with anyone like she is here, and I definitely don't want to see her with someone who isn't her husband. But that's why they killed off her husband, in my opinion. A, to make her a strong, independent female character, and B, to get her to be able to flirt with this dude. And since this dude is apparently the secret Sauron, I have no doubt whatsoever that there's going to be a twist in here where once he reveals that he's Sauron, she's going to be like, you know what? I knew I shouldn't trust men. The one man I trusted turned out to be the bad guy I was looking for. Yeah. Hate men. That's going to be her arc, I predict, throughout this series because of their choice to do these decisions. So it's a perversion of Tolkien's lore. She admits it. It's a perversion of Tolkien lore. They won't admit it yet, but they're getting there because everything else that we have is perverting the lore. And then they just have these classic responses of y'all racist if you don't like it. This marketing machine is falling apart at the seams. Actors are contradicting the producers. Everyone's contradicting each other. And it's just looking worse and worse and worse as we go along. And I just can't wait for Rings of Power just to see how bad it truly will be. But anyway, that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Anon. If you like what I do here and want to see good, compelling stories that Hollywood will no longer give you, check out my book series, Odyssey of a Phoenix, a mythological epic about philosophy, morality, and modern-day mental illness issues. Books 1, Down in Flames, and Book 2, Apocalypse Then, currently on sale. Book 3, Kill the Dark, coming soon.